It's over. We're done. And it's not me. It's you. And the more I thought about it, the duration of this relationship we've been in, it's been, what? Fallout 3. What year did Black Ops come out in? Something like 2006, 2009, I don't know. I just remember that when Black Ops had lost its luster, that was when I found you. You've always been there ever since. And today, it's gone. I mean, the more I look at it and the more I think about it, I think back to like 2009, no, my bad. 2011. 8 long years. And then I took a really good look at you and I realized that everything went kind of sideways 18 years ago. So it's definitely not me. So, let's get into it. I've been working on this for the last little while. Going back and playing through every one of Bethesda's flagship franchise games was not originally intended for this purpose. But this is probably going to be the last time I talk about Bethesda. This might be a bit of a lengthy video. We've got a lot of ground to cover here. Bethesda, at this point, to me, they've gone the way of EA. And I mean, what EA did to Dead Space 3, it pissed me off so bad that when I got to the end of that game, I enjoyed it because it was Dead Space, but they did such a number on it that I made up my mind. I'm never spending my money on an EA game again. To this day, I still haven't. I've got tons of them. I haven't paid a nickel for them. And that, I think, is where Bethesda's at now. And it's not going to matter what they do from here on in. There comes a time where you just walk away. So, with that, I suppose this is the culmination of tens of thousands of hours of gameplay. I haven't just gone into each Bethesda game. I've gone in, played them inside out, and outright broke the damn things. I mean, I didn't 100% any of them. This dick don't hit the bottom, but I'll fuck the sides up, though. And after tens of thousands of hours, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, all their DLCs, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, I wouldn't touch 76. I wouldn't. I made up my mind before that game came out that a fucking dime of my money wasn't going into that piece of shit. So I have to wonder if Bethesda, to me, went the way of EA back in Fallout 4. And I was just in denial like so many other fans, or if Fallout 76 was finally what took to do it in. I got into Fallout through Fallout 3 like many other people. And when Fallout New Vegas came out, I mean, I liked that one way more than Fallout 3, and I didn't even understand the whole Bethesda and Obsidian and, that situation. I just liked it better as a game. And to tell you the truth, I kind of assumed it was a Bethesda game. I know a lot better now, but I went back and played Fallout 1 and 2, Fallout Tactics. Hell, I even went back and tracked down a copy of Brotherhood of Steel. The game that, up until Fallout 76, was the game that they deemed so bad that it killed the franchise. And we'll get into that too. So, I've covered my ground with extensive hands-on experience. And I also went back and covered Arena and Daggerfall. Like, this is a long time in coming. So, let's get right into it. Now, we'll go through a little bit of a history lesson. Prior to Morrowind, Bethesda was in a bit of a tight position. The Elder Scrolls Arena and its sequel Daggerfall, and 2 other spin-offs, using Bethesda's X engine, gained a bit of a following on the PC, but ultimately they failed to garner the excess of other PC titles at the time. If I recall correctly, Bethesda was on the verge of bankruptcy, and they were kind of making their money doing bit pieces, developing for other people's games, and porting B and C grade games to the PC, which is where most of their staffed how to code games. Now, I'm not going to cite sources. I'm open to correction. Please, if I'm wrong about something, correct me. Leave a comment. I'll own it. I'll even start off the next video I make rectifying my mistake. I'm a human being in a human world. So this is just what I've gathered and verbatim. They did, though, to their credit, realize that they had, in fact, learned quite a lot, and they had. If anybody ever played any of their older games, I'm sure they'd know what I was talking about. So, naturally, it makes sense to move away from other people's IPs and porting things and go back to try to apply a much more diverse skill set to their, their dream, which was the Elder Scrolls. Now, due to Bethesda's financial situation, they didn't actually have any money to do it, and they were on the verge of bankruptcy. The guys at Bethesda that had money tied up in it simply formed another company to carry Bethesda's debt burden. And that was ZeniMax Media. There were other people investing in that too. To my knowledge, I believe it was Tim Pool, who had mentioned in one of his videos that Donald Trump's brother is actually on the board for ZeniMax. So, there's good money going behind this media group. Don't get me wrong. This is just the history. They were established in 1999 to protect investment capital into the failing studio by taking on fiduciary and administrative responsibilities, meaning ZeniMax handled Bethesda's payroll, ZeniMax handled pretty much they had to play parent to a child with no financial responsibility. And that was what it took to bring back the developer from the brink at least long enough for from what I've read into was a Final Fantasy Hail Mary play. One shot to get it right. And in Final Fantasy's case, they were pretty well assured that they were done, hence the name of the game. Bethesda didn't seem to have that kind of humility, but that's what it was. It was one shot to make a game that was going to return on investment. Otherwise, they were done. And I'm 100% positive the amount of bullshit that comes out of Todd Howard's mouth had something to do with it. Just my opinion. So this is where we kind of begin a tragic tale of beauty carved out of rot. In 2002, the gaming world was given the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, and despite the subject of what I'm summarizing here, I believe and would argue that Morrowind is an incredibly important game and one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And for better or worse, it was kind of a fluke. Sorry, not sorry. My speculation and understanding is the pressure on the developers at the time wasn't just a deadline, it was the one shot. Succeed in bringing the Elder Scrolls to home console on the Xbox and bring Bethesda into the mainstream, or it's over. They only had one IP of any notable potential, motivation fueled by some pretty extreme circumstance and self-preservation, and what, in my opinion, would be devoid from every single one of their in-house projects moving forward. And that is a defined vision for what they want to create. They created their masterpiece, and as soon as it came out, I kind of believe this is where their downfall started. While Bethesda took off, Interplay was on its way out. And in 2004, the final coffin nail for Interplay would be Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. A licensed game with a name slapped on it so that, people would buy it, and it had nothing to do with the original Fallout team who were working on Fallout 3 Van Buren, which I also think would have been a much better Fallout game than Fallout 3. Now, that game was so bad it put them under, and ended up being disavowed pretty much by the entire Fallout community, though accredited with killing the franchise. But seeing the potential, a Fallout-type game in a Morrowind, a Fallout-style setting in a Morrowind type of game, that's a sure shot. Now, they acquired the IP and announced that they would be working on a title bringing in the Fallout fans who could only imagine traversing the wastes in a 3D open world like Morrowind. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion would release in 2006 and Fallout 3 in 2008. Both met with praise and success, and both greatly overshadowed by the most acclaimed Bethesda titan, The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, in 2011. 4 Game of the Year's awards in a row for their in-house releases, 4 hugely critical successes, 2 flagship franchises with massive, loyal, dedicated, and eager fans clamoring for more. So loudly, Bethesda even gave them the tools that they used to make them, so the community had the means to enjoy endlessly while Bethesda worked on its next masterpiece. This, I believe, is another lie. Surely this must be the mark of greatness in a studio destined to succeed. No, not really. This is more like 4 units into the condo, and already the inadequacies of the foundation on which the superstructure is going to be built are evident. And time telling a narrative that shows Bethesda is less of a skilled builder and paints him to be more of a shady landlord who fixes a leak with a fresh coat of paint and then cites maintenance as a reason to up your rent. The leak's still there and it's just pooling up out of sight. Eventually, the ceiling's gotta come down. So, with that all said, let's take an extensive look at the vainglorious history of Bethesda, an 18-year fluke, and why it's time to exit stage right from a relationship that, frankly... So, Like I said, this might go on a bit. We're already a quarter of an hour in, so I'm going to try to wrap this up within another 15 minutes. Now, we've already gone through the chronology up to Skyrim. Now, going back, having played Morrowind, Fallout 3, Oblivion, New Vegas, and Skyrim, all of those hours, believe me, I'm aware of damn near every single bug that exists in their 2011 releases that had already been there for a decade. Now, the fact that The Elder Scrolls wasn't managing to be a hit and almost bankrupted Bethesda should have been an indicator as what type of people were working on a good idea. Morrowind was a do or die. It got praise, and it, at the time, was certainly deserving of every little bit. The people, I mean, you go back and play Fallout 3, it's kind of bland. The only real innovation in it over what Morrowind had to offer was pretty much VATS, which had to be put in there. It wouldn't have worked otherwise. It's too integral to the turn-based RPG the game was created on. A turn-based RPG that was much better than Bethesda's idea of a turn-based RPG, tabletop RPG, but on a computer. Succeeded far more for a reason. Now, we can get into Fallout New Vegas briefly. First off, that's published and put out by Bethesda, done by the creators of the original Fallout. New Vegas hits all these centrifugal themes and is considered by some, myself included, to be the, well, best Fallout game out there. And I truly believe it is. Now, after Skyrim, Bethesda runs totally out of ideas. They're bankrupt. They got nothing. And even what they got is just this rehash. Things don't change much, just little additions put in there. But the very engine the game is based on gets nothing. No love. No updates. Simple tweaks and modifications, but nothing ever really to bring the game beyond what Morrowind could have been. Now, with Skyrim, when the modding community takes off, people have noted Bethesda has pilfered a lot of ideas for their games from the modding community. Now, people have been modding Morrowind for a long time. I wouldn't doubt Bethesda is still managing to take cues from that, but the fact is, come Skyrim, they had dummied it down so much that it was detrimental if you'd played the other two. And look at all the quests and things you can do. Well, in 2011, there were other games at the time coming out that did it, but looked better. So, Morrowind is the game that deserves to be on a pedestal. Skyrim, they've been riding for the last 7-8 years. Re-releases and relying on drawing people in by that. But to go from Skyrim backwards, except maybe Fallout New Vegas, which was a Fallout game with choice and consequence and setting and a fucking point. You can't go backwards with Bethesda games with much appreciation. And if you do, it just ruins what comes out when you see the bullshit it's clogged with. This was a failing company when it started. One masterpiece, and everything from then was just more of the same because it's what we know works, and it was the bullshit lies Todd Howard was most comfortable with telling. And then after that, we see the proof that Bethesda has gotten a little bit clueless as to what the hell to do next. because they put out Fallout Shelter in 2015. Something totally different. A mobile game. Littered with microtransactions. I wholeheartedly believe Fallout Shelter was just a little bit of a rough test. A framework for microtransactions to see what people would buy, what they wouldn't buy, what kind of return they'd get on it. Fallout 4 was trying to establish gameplay mechanics from the other games, but really reducing what made Fallout Fallout. And Fallout 4 kind of felt like it was another test for Demograph. And we all know at around that time, we started to figure out, we the community, guys like Geeks and Gamers, guys like Young Yeah, guys like The Quartering, we started figuring out that all these idiots were simply looking at the numbers of what was working elsewhere and saying, we got to get a piece of that pie. Fallout Shelter and Fallout 4 were just a test to see what would make money. And whether or not, by the numbers, Bethesda should jump the gun on their loyal plans and try to monetize everything, or whether they made more money off the loyal fans. I think we know which way that it went. Because we got Fallout 76. And building up to it, well, my buddy Andy was getting all, ooh, new Fallout! Which was me building up to Fallout 4. I looked at it and went, man, this looks like Fallout Shelter in 3D set outside the vault, set up for microtransactions, low effort, high return, which is something we have seen symptomatic of Bethesda since Oblivion. I mean, they acquired Fallout in 2004, but Oblivion came out in 2006, which means out of 18 years, we can go back 13 years ago to the horse armor. I didn't forget about that. So, these guys have been trying to find ways to just take the most for what they put out. And they've always banked on the goodwill. The goodwill. People liked Morrowind. Make Oblivion a little simpler. But they liked it too. Dumbing it down even more, so even more people like Skyrim. You guys only had one idea from the get-go. And by Skyrim, the third game in the franchise, it was very clear you'd abandoned the notion of it. It was very clear you had already been experimenting with how much you could make for putting out very little. I mean, let's face it, that stupid horse armor was your guys' $1 red dot article. Reticle, my bad. So, where do we go from here? Fallout 76 was the culmination of a misguided experiment in marketing demographics and numbers and greed. Now, if anybody would have asked me, I'd have been more interested in Fallout Shelter, but in 3D. Here's a control room. Here's a power generator. Here's a water station. And, you know, here are the basics, like what Fallout Shelter gave you. Here are 6 people. Your player character is the overseer. Now, you can send people out on quests, or you can choose to go with them. That, to me, sounds pretty cool. Just do a randomly generated world where you start a quest and it drops you off on some kind of randomly generated area with, say, 4 entrances to dungeons, but only one of them's a fairly big one with what you're looking for. That would have been cool. Where you're scavenging and looting and, you know, you say to the people in the vault, okay guys, we have enough resources that we've accumulated questing and shit. Upgrade the power center. Oh, can't do that till you build the second one. You know, there was potential for the idea. Huge potential for it to work as a multiplayer. Huge. There was even monetization, and I mean, they could have monetized it the way that they did. Might have been interested in that, unless they went full retard with it, like the way Fallout Shelter was. But it had potential. And all over this last 18 years, from Morrowind, we've been told about all these great advancements. We've been sold on all these innovations. You know what? Go back and play them. Go do it. I dare you. Go back and play every single one of them in this day and age. They're reskins of the other. They just look nicer, but the changes weren't really there much. It's boring. It's lazy. People say that, well, they were saved by good narratives. You know what? I don't think they were. Were they? 76 sucked. Fallout 4 sucked. New Vegas had a narrative, but it wasn't written by Bethesda. Fallout 3 completely missed the point of what a Fallout game should have been. Choice, consequence, multiple endings. I mean, and Fallout 3 had that, but it missed the centrifugal theme. That Fallout was about re-establishing civilization, tribal society, like a very intellectual game to see applied. And one of morality. Good example? Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 3, an altruistic quest to save the world or kill it. While you look for your dad. No. No. I'd have settled for something a little better, because you didn't deliver it in Fallout 4. And having played through Skyrim, you can go through the game as a murdering thief. As long as you pay your bounties, people are still nice to you. So even then, I mean, Skyrim lacked a way to be a real cruel, evil son of a bitch. At least Fallout 3 let you nuke Megaton. It let you be the bad guy. It was just missing a lot of what made Fallout Fallout, which is a failure on Bethesda's part. What they succeeded in was bringing more people to the franchise. And even then, Bethesda's own fan base is turning their backs on them with 76. And I'm not buying their shit again. I'll buy merch, a toque, a loot box on my dresser, but I ain't paying for their games. Looking into it though, id Software is owned by ZeniMax, not Bethesda. I'll still buy id Software games unless Bethesda, as their publisher, starts pulling the EA type of shit. And at that point, sorry id, I've been a fan of you guys since '93 when I was 6 years old, but I'll hightail it on you too. The day that the Doomslayer's double barrel shotgun is $5, you guys can suck my burp. So, we all know the scandals with Bethesda. We all know the schemes. Now you know an 18-year history of laziness. Narrative saved them? No, narrative sold the game. Hey guys, play the story. It's alright. The voice acting's half-assed. I've played mod DLCs with better voice acting. And better stories. And more complex quests. So, my rant said and done, coming to its end now. Here's why I'm quitting Bethesda. And my problem with all their problems. They're liars. Chronically overselling themselves and underdelivering. I'm just done with that. I don't take purchasing advice from a fucking liar. I'm smarter than that. After the Nuka-Rum, the bag, Fallout 76, Fallout 4. You know what? Fallout 4 was a big thing for me. I waited. I bought my Xbox One for that game. Get 3 hours into it, and what the fuck? It's awful! Yeah. I didn't like Fallout 4 from the get-go. I played it once. I reinstalled it to try mods. Even the mods weren't enough to save it for me. So, I'm done dealing with liars. I'm done dealing with people who cheat and steal from their customers and give them shitty customer service, who oversell them on a broken product. Not doing it. I don't support those kind of business practices. That's the shit I expected from EA. And then, a few tens of thousands of hours and a whole fuck of a lot of reading. And a whole lot of bugs. I just started to think that they were lying to you from the get-go. So, here's the worst offender for all of it and where I'm going to leave it off. They're the laziest developing studio outside of maybe... what was that company that went under? Telltale. I never played one of their games either. They looked lazy. Bethesda is lazy. I can tolerate an honest thief and I can accept a good intentioned lie. But I have no use for people who will not work. And Bethesda doesn't. They don't work to make a good game. They don't work to fix their games. They don't work to keep a satisfied customer. They don't work to deliver a solid product. Bethesda simply doesn't work. Now, they neglect to fix bugs going all the way back to Morrowind, even when they've been fixed by the modding community. If that doesn't say laziness, I don't know what does. And if it doesn't say greedy bastards that they tried to take mods people made and capitalize off them, I don't know what else will. And finally, they're too lazy to be competent. Argue me there. They're incompetent with everything. Their marketing, their customer service, the maintenance of their service and products, public relations, trust, and their business practices. When it's all said and done, this is a company that had a fluke, that made an impact. And don't get me wrong, I won't say Bethesda hasn't made an impact on the gaming world. Me, if it were up to me, I would see more developers do what Bethesda has done and put out the tools so people can mod on consoles. That I think they got right. And frankly, I don't think the online future of gaming is sustainable. How do you build an online framework for a game that doesn't end up using it? That's a lot of money for online framework in every game that could be going into something better, like single player experience that doesn't need to be patched and updated all the time. Finished games at release. Not using the same sound effect to open up a treasure chest that you've been using for 18 years. So we're done, Bethesda. You're all a bunch of lazy, inept, incompetent cunts. Bye.